this every Tuesday. You trying to box? Yeah, you ain't trying to box? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where am I? Yeah. Come here, boy. No hard feelings, right? We still cool? Oh, we still cool. We still cool. It's also Tier List Tuesday. What's going on with y'all, big dog? And it is an amazing day for Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope that your day is going phenomenal, but if it isn't, don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. Speaking of today, as I said before, it is Tier List Tuesday. And today, we're going to be talking about some of the top dog decks post Dimension Force. Now, Dimension Force brings so many awesome strategies into the forefront. Let's go ahead and jump on in so we can define exactly what are these particular tiers with a little bit of changes. The meta changer tier are for the decks that completely define how the meta are. These are not only the top decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! They are tier 1 decks, but they actually define what you can and can't play inside of the meta. From there are tier 1 decks that are still extremely powerful in this Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta. They can go toe-to-toe with the meta changer decks, but don't define the meta. Tier 2 are very awesome. Tier 2 decks are very... The tier 2 category is defined by the meta. These particular strategies take advantage of the situation that we're in. And then of course there are decks with untapped potential. Because Dimension Force brings so many new strategies into the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game, either directly or indirectly, I would have to say that these decks have untapped potential. If you want to see a video of me talking about some of the other strategies that have so much potential that could potentially change Yu-Gi-Oh! In depth, well, you can go ahead and click on this video. I think that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is in for a change post Dimension Force. And of course, this is still everyone's favorite. It's still, oh no, what are you doing, baby? But I actually repurposed it for casual because these decks are still really fun to play. But in the competitive scene, let's not talk about it. I also want you guys to keep in mind that these decks are placed on this tier list because of their statistical competitive success, as well as the new support from Dimension Force. If you do not see your deck on this particular list, you can go ahead and check out the Rogue tier list. That will probably have your particular strategy, or just mention it down below if you want to see your particular strategy in another tier list. So let's go ahead and get this tier list to a start. Dinos are easily a solid tier 2 deck in this format post Dimension Force. Assuming that we don't get a forbidden list, or the forbidden list that we get doesn't change much, don't worry guys. If we do get a mind-changing forbidden list, expect a meta tier list. Because of that, I think that Dinos are in a very solid spot. Not only is this format revolved around monsters that can be flipped face down with Ultimate Conductor TYRANNO and can be subverted through Miscellaneousaurus, Ultimate Conductor TYRANNO still attacks into every single one of their monsters, breaking their board, and players are still really reliant on token monsters, something that Lost World takes full advantage of. If you're an adventure token / fusion player, which, I mean, that's a lot of the format, then yeah, Dinos can take full advantage and is one of the better decks in the format because of how we are situated. ABC, I feel, has so much untapped potential. I'm on the cusp by saying that, yo, this deck is not great, because in honesty, the ABC parts themselves are not great, but Union Hangar is. On top of that, since you do have the room, you can play all of the engines that you want to. You can play the Fateful Adventure engine, you can play Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer with ease, but the new Therion King Regulix really does help this strategy. A quick tip for you players: if you do summon Therion King Regulus to your side of the field and equip an ABC part, you can special summon the ABC part to your side of the field and still have a disruption. It's essentially giving you protection from Nibiru as well as a free monster to your side of the field, which really does help the ABC strategy. The only thing that I've always harped about this strategy is the expense, but if you got it, you got it. Moving forward, Invoked. Oh man, Invoked. Oh, I really want to say Invoke's a tier 1 strategy. And the reason why Invoked is so powerful post Dimension Fusion is because everything is still weak to Super Polymerization, and this is one of the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! To be able to use Super Polymerization. turning ALEISTER the Invoker into any of your invoked fusion monsters, allowing you to be able to dodge cards, and on top of that, make a board using your opponent's monsters is too strong. This can also play the branded or the SHADDOLL engine, giving you access to Mirror Jade, which is a free disruption, or being able to summon SHADDOLL Winda to prevent your opponent from special summoning multiple times. This is in a very, very solid spot. Ancient Warriors, guys, this is a very good, I want to say untapped potential. The new Ancient Warriors monster is kind of nutty, guys. Reason being is because not only is it a search to a level 7 or higher Ancient Warriors monster, when your opponent gets rid of it, it can get rid of an opponent's card by banishing it and get you a free draw. This is perfecto support. It's really, really good. But ultimately, I think that this is a solid casual deck, maybe in the cusp between these two. And the reason why is because the Ancient Warrior strategy needs to draw those going second cards as a going second deck. And while it does feel like it's a going second deck, it doesn't have those naturally great going second cards. Let me give you an example. Dinos have Misc, Dinos have Lost World, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. Ancient Warriors don't necessarily have things that replicate those exact same things, allowing you to go second carelessly and need cards like Kaijus or Forbidden Droplets to be able to break your opponent's board. I think once that gets solved, then Ancient Warriors will be a very solid deck. Cyber Dragons, so much untapped potential. So, one amazing thing that Cyber Dragons have always missed is the ability to be able to have another negation outside of Infinity or Protect Your Infinity plays. Well, Therion King's Regulax not only does do that, on top of that, it allows you to equip cards like Cyber Dragon Hertz, which means that if Therion King Regulax or the Hertz is removed from the field, you get another Cyber Dragon. That's cool for advantage. I have to say that, and I have to keep saying, that Branded Fusion is a one-card OTK for Cyber Dragons. So I feel like a lot of players are sleeping on this deck, and it has so much potential, especially since we do plan on seeing a little bit more machines inside of the meta due to Regulax himself. This is an easy turn off to that card, and if your opponent plays monsters in the extra monster zone, well, turn that off too. Also, moving forward, DDD doesn't necessarily get any new support from the Dimension 4 set, but it's still just a really, really solid deck. If you are a great DDD player, you can literally play through anything. It's almost crazy how resilient this deck can be. And on top of that, for some reason, players still don't understand how this strategy works. So a lot of times you'll get free wins just off of that. If you didn't know, then now you know now. Albaz is the best deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Despia, Albaz, branded, whatever you want to call it, hands down the best deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! And it only gets more scary. The new Albaz Fusion monster completely, it's a middle finger to Dragon Link players. Not only can it just be freely summoned to the side of the field, ruining their board, but it also has another effect that just makes this deck ridiculous. When it's sent to the graveyard, you can add a polymerization or fusion. Well, why did you have that effect? It's a free search too. Mirror Jade literally allows you to reset another fusion or polymerization to your hand, which is ridiculous for this deck. And I haven't even talked about how Branded Banishment allows you to fuse with your opponent's cards. That's right, it's a super polymerization. It's ridiculous how much stronger this deck gets with 2 cards from Dimension Force. Dinomorphia. The new Dinomorphia monster, the new fusion monster, he kind of good. I hate his summoning requirements. Not necessarily extremely hard for Dinomorphia players, but basically what he does is that your opponent cannot activate monster effects with the life points that you are over the life points that you have. And this is a deck that plays with 13 life points from time to time. So you're not activating anything, which is crazy. The problem with Dinomorphia is that you run into a deck like Despia that summons the Masquerade, the Blazing Dragon, and then you just yo, I lose. Those trap cards aren't protecting you from that particular situation. I do think that this deck is in the right direction, but unfortunately, it's a deck that is relying on going first and being using Solemn Strike and Solemn Judgment and whatnot. And the new fusion monster, while great, it's a little harder to summon. I wish that it was very, very easy to summon. I'm not saying that it's difficult for this deck, but it's a little more difficult than what you expect. You know what I mean? It's one of those strategies that this needed to be the most easiest to summon boss card for the deck. If you could immediately summon it consistently off bat with just 1 card, That would be better, but I'd still think it'd be a casual deck. Zombies post-dimension force. Guys, oh my god. Yo, the Immortal Dragon does so much for this deck. It makes it a lot more consistent, getting Doom King Valor Rock to your side of the field. And with players' best hand traps being Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, and Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion, even if Zombie World's not face up on the field, yo, this will still be able to negate your opponent's hand traps. I'm really excited for Zombie World because against some of the top meta decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Against Sword Soul, that's an easy W, just activate Zombie World. Against Fluundereese, Zombie World. And of course, against everybody's favorite deck, against Tri-Brigade, BBWs aren't so big when you got Zombie World on the field. Zombie World just literally FTKs certain decks inside of the game, and that's what makes it a solid tier 2 deck. Drytron doesn't necessarily lose any footing in this meta, but doesn't gain anything post-Dimension Force. There feels like there are better combo decks in Yu-Gi-Oh!, but at the same time, Drytron is one of the most free strategies because every single one of your Drytron monsters say, yo, special summon me to the side of the field by putting another one of me to the graveyard, and then do other things. So it's pretty cool how the Drytron strategy is almost self-sufficient, and players are starting to realize that they're all monsters that can summon themselves, meaning giving this deck the versatility to be able to play any engine that it wants. Eldritch is going to be our very first tier 1 deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Nothing really changes against this deck. The new Alba Dragon for Dimension Force helps this deck tremendously because it doesn't need its extra deck. Send it to the graveyard to search your branded fusion, which gives it a little bit more consistency. This is potentially the best trap deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Shaddolls, guys. Shaddolls by themselves, pure Shaddol. You can play it in Invoke, you can play it as a substitute, you can play it as an engine, but pure Shaddolls are sauce. This was already a strategy that was doing fairly well in regionals, and again, the new Alba Dragon, oh my god, it searches Shaddol Fusion for them. Do I have to say anything more? Not only can Mirror Jade send and banish a card on your opponent's side of the field, it can search them Shaddol Fusion. Like, come on, this is crazy how much stronger this deck gets post-Dimension Force. Now, Fluundereese, solid tier 1 deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Mainly because Dimensional Shifter really does mess over almost every strategy in Yu-Gi-Oh! But what makes this deck even stronger, Harpie's Featherstorm kind of takes care of the rest in case it needed it. And on top of that, Fluundereese is a strategy that is fairly hard to side against. If you're siding cards like Droll and Lockbird or Artifact Lancia, well, this deck can play under Lancia. I learned the hard way. It doesn't really care from time to time. And against Droll and Lockbird, just hope they don't shifter you, right? This can be a complete pain to deal with and is one of the better decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Fairly cheap too if you are getting into the game. Goki is a solid casual deck. I feel like it has untapped potential, but the problem with the Goki strategy is that monsters like Appaloosa, Bull of the Goddess are fairly underwhelming. It's not like it's not a bad card, but it's fairly easy to play against. And then it can make Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer, which is pretty cool, but it did get support from the Dimension Force set, being able to get the Therion's Bolzane, which does give it a free extender, but I'm gonna have to put it in like untapped potential if we can ever figure out like a great boss monster that these decks can't do, and then casual because it's Goki. Same thing with Heroic Challenger. If I'm gonna cut it straight with you, this is literally like the worst casual deck inside of the set. One of the worst, because there's some other ones. Just play Utopia. Like everything that this deck wants to do, it wants to go second and OTK your opponent by summoning a really strong monster. Utopia does the same thing. And what's crazy is you could just play a warrior deck. You could play Phantom Knights. You can play Infernoble. It's not, I'm sorry guys, Heroic players, all three of you guys, I'm sorry, it's not a great deck. Get Ron, go back and we'll talk. Ice Jade, hella casual. So Ice Jade's new spell card actually covers up for Ice Jade losing to 1 hand trap. Now the card is pretty good because again, it allows you to pop off your combos, protect it. But the problem with that is that now you need to open that card in order to open your combos and protect it. And your high-end boards are not really that great. Libromancers, oh God. Casual. The Libromancer trap card is the best thing about this deck. The Libromancer ritual monster from last set is the best ritual monster. but all of your Libromancer ritual monsters are pretty mediocre. Now, your monsters are pretty good. The new Libromancer monster, I believe, allows you to summon itself to the side of the field for free and search for free. That's great, but Libromancers are an underwhelming archetype. Earth Machine, guys, with the Therions. Oh, man. So, Therion King Regulix does provide protection for this strategy. I don't see how it does match up against these other strategies in Yu-Gi-Oh! But I do know that because it has those type of protections, it is another layer for you to be able to break boards and also another layer to protect yourself for you to go full combo. I think that the best way to play Earth Machine right now is to go ahead and play it as a combo deck because you do have those protections. And then instead of hand traps, maybe just play those board breaking cards that allow you to continue to play. I got to do a little more testing, but I do think at the end of the day, it might be a solid tier 2 deck. I'm going to put it out in tap potential for night. Pendulums. Yo. They got Heavy Metal Foes Electromite without getting Heavy Metal Foes Electromite. Pendulum strategies get a huge boost. The problem is, which pendulum strategy is going to come out supreme? If you were to ask me personally, I would probably have to go just straight up with the Pendulum Magician concept because it has so many amazing things. There's Pendulum Graph, which allows you to destroy cards, and then it can send another card on your opponent's graveyard if you didn't destroy one of your cards, non-targeting. It also has some really cool cards like Double Iris Magician to search the cards, and then the Time Star Magician, I feel like I'm saying it wrong, but the level 4 monster to special summon from deck, allowing you to make cards like Baron de Fleur fairly easily. Prank Kids, I feel they dropped their status from Meta Changer into Tier 1. There are so many great strategies in Yu-Gi-Oh! And Prank Kids is definitely one of them. The problem with Prank Kids is that players have figured out that, I can just, deal with your inboard and use cards like Forbidden Droplet, since it is a fairly good card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. Deal with you, and then, put you on You Better Have It. Prank Kids Meow Meow Mew to 1 has definitely hurt a lot, but this is still a very, very good strategy in Yu-Gi-Oh! Predaplants, guys, have tons and tons of untapped potential. Seriously. We made a video on this, and this deck is kind of cracked. The new Predaplant and Predaplant Meliodas allows you to search Predaplant cards from your deck to your hand, and I can see this card being abused in other decks very soon. Small Predaplant engine inside of your deck to make your fusion cards even go harder. The Punk strategy I don't think is there just yet. I think Punks do get a lot better with Punk Deer. It's probably one of their best cards. It's a free special summon, and then it can special summon from deck. Yo, I think when we get Power of the Duelist, I think that's his name, Power of the Elements. Konami got to stop. It's the same deck, it's the same set, right? This probably comes into tier 1 or 2-ish, depending on how the Forbidden List develops, but so much untapped potential in this strategy. Dragon Links they're tier 2. That new Albaz fusion monster, oh my god, it definitely hurts Dragon Links. I don't want to say it kills the deck, but it hurts Dragon Links a lot. That means that almost any strategy that is playing Fusion right now that's playing Albaz can literally break your Heretic Seal boards just by summoning an Albaz, which should be a brick in their deck. It's kind of ridiculous how that works. Also, SCARECLAW, easy untapped potential. What SCARECLAW reminds me of, it reminds me of Crusadia. And you guys know Crusadia actually did play really well in the last event, right? The last huge event. SCARECLAW summons a monster in 1 card that could potentially, any monster in defense position cannot use this effect. And a lot of players tend to put their cards in defense position like Cough Cough Wandering Griffin Rider, because it has a better defense. And a lot of times they don't want to lose to Lightning Storm. There are so many instances where this deck just draws parallels to the Crusadia strategy. I want to see how that plays out, especially since it's a new strategy, it's bound to get new support in the upcoming sets. Sky Striker is 100% tier 1. Therion King Regulix does help this deck too. And yes, putting it in the extra monsters or in the main monster zone does turn off your Sky Striker cards, but Sky Striker has dealt with this, getting rid of the card out of the main monster zone pretty easily. Basically, when you want to start comboing off, you can summon Regulix, get free cards, provide yourself that protection from disruption, and then play your Sky Striker cards after you link them off. I think that this card is really good, or this deck is really good. And keep in mind, once Regulix does negate, he'll send himself, which allows you to turn on your Sky Striker cards. Sunvalon. Bold take. Bold take. I think Sunvalon is like right here and right here. Well, not right here. It's literally like the bottom of tier 2 / tier 1. I'm gonna make a very bold take and say that it's like, ooh, I'm gonna put it right here. So Sunvalon is crazy good. It's actually really resilient. It has so many different combo trees. Your opponent doesn't necessarily know what to hit, but ultimately this is your time to shine, guys. The new Therion's Lily gives this deck so much. Like, it makes the deck ultra consistent. It gives you Therion King Regulix, which is a form of protection. And since you don't need your normal summon monster effect, you can always use the adventure token engine to protect yourself from cards like Nibiru, which did help this deck or hurt this deck before. Sword Soul, as you guys should already know, is a tier 1 strategy. Doesn't necessarily get any support that I can think of that helps this deck inside of Dimension Force, but is still a very, very, very solid strategy in Yu-Gi-Oh! Symphonics, the Symphonics are casual. The problem with Symphonics is that, well, first, don't get me wrong. If this deck like goes uninterrupted, it makes some ridiculous boards. You can summon like almost any extra deck monster to use out of the build. There's Baron de Flor and Crystal Wing and stuff like that. You can even summon Evil Sword Dulka with this deck. But the problem is that it needs the symphonic, what's that symphonic monster? The DJ. You need DJ and you need synth. Like, you need those 2 cards. If you don't have those 2 cards, your hand does become a lot worse. And if your opponent does stop those cards, a little bit worse. Phantom Knights, are Phantom Knights tier 1? Phantom Knights don't get any support, but definitely benefit from this format. They benefit from the format that we're in, because if you move away from the Scythe Lock, this deck is actually a lot better. But I'm gonna go ahead and say that it's a solid tier 2 deck, strictly because Phantom Knight's Fog Blade literally stops. I mean, it's a good interacting card. Keep in mind, IJ can only banish monsters, so you just kind of Fog Blade and you keep playing. I genuinely think once players stop playing that artifact Scythe Lock and start like looking at Phantom Knights like, yo, you know, I can just kind of outgrind my opponent with this deck, they'll be a lot better. So where exactly would I put Therions? Like, a part of me wants to put him here. And the reason why I would put him here is because not Therion the deck itself changes the meta, but Therion the engine makes Sky Striker better. Therion the engine makes Sunvalon better. Therion the engine makes so many strategies on here better. It does change the meta. But Therion as a strategy in itself, I feel that tier 2, I'm going to make a bold take and say it's tier 1. I'm going to make a very, very bold take and say it's tier 1. Look, the Therion monsters gain the effects of the Therion monsters that are equipped to it, which means you can make Therion King Regulix so many times. Also, the plant engine seems to be the best way to play it, and plant cards are really, really busted in Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm going to make a genuine bold take and say that this is a tier 1 deck, though in my heart, I might be on Hopium. It might just be a tier 2 deck. Tri-Brigades are a tier 1 deck. I think that the Branded Fusion spell card has 100% solidified them as one of the better decks because of the resiliency. Yes, they do lose when their monster, their normal summon, does get interrupted if they don't have an extender. Plot twist, Branded Fusion can always be an extender for this strategy and can take full advantage of being able to send cards from your deck to the graveyard. Keep in mind, Charade still can activate its effect when sent from the deck to the graveyard. Virtual World is a tier 2 deck. Virtual World QB Shinshin does a considerable amount of damage, but unfortunately not enough. And this losing Pot of Desires definitely hurt this deck a lot. The Adventure Synchro deck, I feel it's probably one of the worst tier 1 decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! The reason why I say this is because people are really starting to pick apart that, yo, you're just an amalgamation of engines, and once we hit the correct choke points and play enough hand traps, the deck kind of falls apart. Regardless though, the Adventure Synchro engine is still very, very powerful. It's still a fairly good deck. And I mean, like, you'll always have your engines in case the deck does get hit or it does fall into obscurity. Weather Painters. Yo. The Weather Painter monster, Weather Painter Rainbow, she is ridiculous. She is just completely ridiculous. The problem with Weather Painters is that they haven't had a consistent way to make it. Well, the new Weather Painter field spell, I want to say the Weather Report. Oh my god, it's a free normal summon. It puts your canvas cards in the spell and trap card zone. It allows you to link with your canvas cards. It's literally like Konami's fix for the deck. It completely changes how the deck plays. Basically, what you want to do is special summon that, or link summon into that Weather Painter Rainbow, and then get 4 disruptions for 1 card. She's a disruption, and then every Weather Painter monster pointed to her is also a disruption, which is really, really cool. And that is all that we have for today's meta tier list post Dimension Force. Of course, if you think that I missed a particular strategy, let me know down below in the comment section. Maybe we can put it inside of another tier list. Also, what do you think about this tier list? Are some of these strategies too low? Maybe too high? What do you think? Let me know. Be sure to check out these videos if you want to see more amazing content, and check out Master Duel Cali if you want to see more Master Duel content, especially with the new Forbidden List and the new selection packs. I hope you are having an amazing day, and I'll catch you on the next video.